What is up, world? You should definitely already know who it is. It's your boy Rydog here with the 5th annual Turkey Day blooper recap. Each year around this time, we compile the dumbest moves of the season, and then rank them in order of stupidity. Before we start the countdown, however, let's take a quick look at the rankings and see who still has a chance, year 5. These bottom 3 teams represent the biggest losers. Their teams have sucked consistently all year, and no one ever thought they had a chance. One of these teams will make the losers bracket, where they can fight for bragging rights. Next, we have Doug. Doug is currently 8th in points, but since 6 teams already have 7 wins, he doesn't have enough games left to win out. This mathematically eliminates him from playoffs. Both the Chris's have an extremely narrow path to playoffs. Bad Girl Armies involves a complicated series of exact victories over the next 2 weeks. Kurt Cocaine's involves the same series, plus netting around 100 points on this chunk of teams. Chris Keene is not making playoffs. This leaves 9 teams who still have a fighting chance. Because the scenarios are still so complicated, I'll revisit the possibilities next week when the picture is a little more clear. Alright, let's get straight into it with the top 5 bloopers of the year. Turkey moment number 5. Brandon spends $11 to pick up a kicker, only for him to put up 0 points the next week. This is just funny, spending $11 on a kicker, period. Kickers are pretty replaceable. Most of the time you can pick up free agents after waivers clear.
Epic
so
fail.
I was definitely cracking up when I saw that Brandon spent $11 to get Dan Bailey. But the kicker for this one is that Dan Bailey put up 0 points the next week. It's just so funny to me, spend that amount on a kicker just to get nothing back from it. All right, turkey moment number 4. Brandon drops Russell Wilson, only to end up with Baker Mayfield as a starting quarterback for most of the season. And, this kind of just ties into Brandon not really being patient with some of his bigger names. Russell Wilson hasn't been great. He hasn't really been himself, but he's been a solid top 10 option, I'd say, for quarterbacks throughout the year. After dropping him, he's been bouncing around guys, Andy Dalton, Blake Bortles, finally ending up on Baker Mayfield, who he played for most of the year, and who did pretty bad. It just goes to show that Brandon could have exercised a little more patience with some of his guys before just dropping him to the waiver wire. All right, turkey moment number 3. Brandon drops Josh Gordon. So this move came right after news broke that the Cleveland Browns were releasing him. If Brandon had just waited a couple days, he would have seen that this was not drug related and that Josh Gordon would end up being traded to the New England Patriots.
Epic fail.
And Josh Gordon, he's been pretty good, not great. He's had a couple great games, but having Gordon as a solid wide receiver 1, 2 for Brandon's team would have made a big difference. Would have gave him some of that consistency that he seemed to lack all year as he shuffled players. So, turkey moment number 2. Brandon doesn't spend enough money to get James Conner. It's crazy to think about what Brandon's team would look like if he had handcuffed Bell with Conner. News had broke that Bell, the holdout, was probably going to keep Bell at least out of week 1. And there was a waiver showdown about who was going to get James Conner. I suggested to Brandon that he spend a good amount of his money to get him, and instead he only spent $15. None of us could have predicted that Austin was going to spend $33, but it's so important to the Bell owner to get Conner that I'm pretty stunned Brandon didn't spend more. It's hard to imagine that if Brandon could have ended up with James Conner, matching him up with James White, Brandon's team could have been a solid force this year. All right, well that leads us to our turkey moment number 1. Brandon moves away. Now, I think I speak for everyone in the league when I say that we're super bummed Brandon's no longer with us in San Diego. Brandon was a core of watching Football Crew on Sundays, and even though his team was horrible, he still played every week, stayed active, tried his best to pick up some wins. We're all going to miss you here, and that's why Brandon moving away is the number 1 Gobble Gobble moment of the year. Alright guys, so that's a wrap for our Year 5 Turkey Day special. Hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving, eat some turkey, watch some football. And I will see you guys next week with the Playoff Showdown episode. All right, y'all. I'll catch you then. Gobble, gobble.